Hey there. Welcome to The Quiet Part, hosted by Mark Hansen, a financial advisor at Second Comma. That's me, by the way. This podcast explores our often unspoken priorities and dreams. You know, the things that shape our lives, even if we aren't conscious of how it plays out. The reasons why we sometimes struggle to do what we know we should do, and even continue to do the things that we know we shouldn't. Join me as we go through the everyday, gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves, our decisions, and how we spend our time, our money, and ultimately our lives.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast, The Quiet Part, with your host, Mark Hansen. Mark, this is your first one. It's the inaugural one. It's the launch. It's good to meet you. And how are you? You ready for this?
Doing great. Been thinking about podcasts for years and could not be more excited to be sitting here doing this.
Well, believe me, I could not be more excited about this podcast because you and I have obviously had a chance to talk about things, and I know where you're coming from. I know a little bit about you, so let's discover more about you and introduce yourself to the listening audience. Who are you, and do you have a family, or what's the Mark deal?
Yeah, so I like what it says on my LinkedIn. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a brother, and I also brew beer. Maybe most importantly, my love language, Microsoft Excel. Okay. I've been married for 10 years. We've got 3 kids. The oldest is 4, and we've got a 3-year-old, and we've got a 1-year-old. And we spend a lot of time together as a family. And currently, mommy is like way cooler than daddy, but they're all teaching me to be a better husband, a better father, just a human being. They push me to my limits, and that's the best, the most beautiful thing that they do.
Well, yeah, as long as you listen to them. As long as you listen to them, it kind of works out right and well that way.
That's right.
So where do we start with this? I mean, it's like, I really want to go into the question first. That I know it's out of order, but people are listening to you as a financial advisor. So how did you come to this? And you find yourself where you always thought you'd be?
When I look back, it makes a lot of sense, right? My dad was a financial planner. His dad was a financial planner. Okay. I went to school for financial planning, and every single one of those details I just made up. None of those are real. What actually happened, like my dad worked at a startup company, and I don't want you to picture like a sexy Silicon Valley startup. No, there was like a guy named Ray who said, I have an idea. Are you crazy enough to quit your job? It was that kind of a startup, right? And the stories that my dad has told me about that are really wonderful, and it shaped how I viewed moving through my work life. But there were 3 people at this company, right? It was 1 owner and 2 sales reps. And when they started the company, they had 2 pads of paper and 2 phones. And the best story my dad ever told was that whenever Ray would give a tour of the company, they would call each other back and forth to pretend like they were really busy. And when he told me those kinds of stories, it really took down my barriers of like getting into business. What does business have to look like? And what does it need to be successful, right? So when I actually went to school, I went to school for industrial distribution, which was all about starting a company, bootstrapping. It was from production all the way to sales. It was from working at the production level all the way up to managing the company. And a lot of that was driven from these stories that my dad used to tell me about this very non-sexy startup that he was able to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Industrial distribution is essentially a business degree from the engineering school. And when I got accepted, they brought us in, they sat down at this giant conference room table, and the director of the program, he walked in and he said, hey, we had 500 applicants. And I looked around, there's 4 other people sitting with me. And he said, there are 5 of you guys. I need you to take this seriously, right? I need you to not go in here and waste this time, because there's 495 other students that didn't get to do what you're about to set out and do. And the program piqued my interest, again, partly because of what my dad had told me in stories, and I saw this as a way to educate myself that way, but also because I've always thought about business. So to go way back in time, I actually started my first business when I was in 4th grade, right? And there was the school installed this it was a pencil dispenser. Like you put in a quarter, you turn the little knob, and you get a pencil, right?
Yeah.
So I went home, I rummaged in my piggy bank. I got 3 quarters, back to school. I bought 3 pencils, and 2 were like regular colors, green and a blue. And then this third one that came out was this like holographic, shiny pencil all the way up and down, this holographic foil around the pencil. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
cool. Two boring pencils and one cool pencil. So when school finished, I go to daycare. We're doing activities, and everybody notices my holographic foil pencil. And then somebody offers me 50 cents for my pencil. And I kind of sat back in my chair and I was like, this is interesting.
Boom.
So I sell that pencil. I go home. I dig through all the couch cushions. I look everywhere that I can. And I go back to school the next day. I buy 10 pencils. Back to daycare. And I am slinging pencils left and right. Like everybody knows
Pencil pusher, baby.
I am a pencil pusher, right? I wound up, uh, it's just hilarious to think back. I had four tiers of pencils, right? They were boring colors, cool colors. There were ones with graphics, and then there were like the hollow foil pencils, right? And they ranged
Yeah,
from a
yeah.
quarter up to $1. Okay, so that's
Wow.
I go to daycare, I sell everything, I go back to school, and then I buy like 20, 25 pencils. I mean, I'm stripping all the pencils out of this machine, and I'm standing there organizing my pencils at the dispenser, and somebody else walks up to me and they buy a pencil. And what comes out is it was like maybe it was a little boy and he got a purple pencil and he was really bummed about it. And he looks over at me and I'm just organizing all of my pencils. And he says, can we make a trade? So we play that forward and a couple of days go by, and eventually the kids aren't even using the pencil machine anymore. I am buying all of the pencils out of the machine. I'm holding the stock and I'm selling the kids pencils instead of them, taking a gamble, quote unquote,
Right.
on getting a boring pencil. And eventually the crowd at school gets so big that a teacher walks over and she gets involved. And but that was the end of my pencil pushing days.
So you're
That ended
telling me regulatory forces got involved and it quashed the business? Is that what you're saying?
just squished it real fast. Yeah.
Oh, that is great. I
I've always
I was not
enjoyed
doing
business.
anything like that in the fourth grade. Okay.
Now, if we flash forward now and get okay, now I'm college educated. What do I do? My first job out of college, I went to work at a car dealership. There was a dealership in the area that I was moving into. I had read the
Yeah.
book by the owner. I really wanted to go work for there, and I feel like it's important to say, working at a car dealership, it's not as bad as people say it is, right? It's not all terrible. It's actually worse than that. Okay. It is worse than people think it is to work at a car dealership. And I'm sorry if you work at a car dealership, it's just not my jam. Eventually, they let me go, right? So I worked at this car dealership. They let me go. And when they were letting me go, they said, we see that you have skills and abilities. We're just very sad that you don't want to use those skills and abilities here. And the reason I didn't want to do that was because I couldn't convince myself to sell somebody a car when I looked at their finances.
Yeah.
And then I looked back at the people and I said, Peyton, Jordan, you can't afford this car. If I sell you this car, it will be detrimental to your finances.
Whoa.
And
That is not good sales practice.
my desire for the commission could never override how I felt about them.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I didn't sell very many cars. I'll be honest about that.
Oh, I'm
But I
sure.
took some good financial lessons from that job. So I leave the car industry and I move into the wine industry. And don't let me fool you, it was not a glamorous job. It was a 3-person wine company. One of the owners brought the funding. One of the owners cast the vision. And then I tried to tie those two things together. That was my job, was take
Okay.
the funding and make the vision happen. And their big thing was they wanted to get into Walmart. So I ran the numbers, did a little Excel magic, and I sat them down in a meeting and I said, we aren't big enough. We can do it. We can get into Walmart, but we're not big enough to sustain being in Walmart. It's going to bankrupt the company.
Yeah.
And they're the owners. They persisted. We got into Walmart. And about 6 months later, my phone rang to let me know that the company was out of money and that they were letting me go. And so I took a few more financial lessons from that job. So get out of the wine industry, go into the soda industry. And it wasn't the red soda, it wasn't the blue soda. It was the best soda, the one that's got all the flavors in it. Okay.
Ah,
And this was a really cool job. I would sit in meetings where somebody from marketing would dream up a drink, and then R&D would make a recipe. The manufacturing plants would confirm that they could make it. The sales team would pre-sell it. They'd give us the volume forecast, and then we would ship this stuff all over the country. And my job was to oversee that whole process to make sure that it went from the whiteboard to the shelf in the store so that when you're walking up and down the
Oh,
aisle,
yeah, yeah, cool.
you can buy
Very
it. It was
nice.
super,
Yeah.
super cool job. And then my manager moved positions. My new manager was, we'll say, less than ideal. And I started looking at the exit doors pretty fast.
Wow.
So my final jump before I get into what I do now, I got recruited into a hotel renovation company. And by this point in my career, I'd been promoted a few times. I was making pretty good money. And I started getting into podcasts on my drive to and from work. And
Right.
one day I was driving to work and I couldn't make the math work in my head. And I remember thinking, we should have more money left over than what we do each month.
We being the family.
We being my wife and I, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, we should have more money and we don't. And I couldn't crunch the numbers in my head. And I said, I should learn about personal finance. So I found a couple of podcasts and I started devouring that content. Now, flash forward a couple of years, my wife and I, we've taken our finances as far as we can and we need some help. And so I find out that there's a financial planner in this Bible study that I'm in at church. So I email him, we set up a meeting, we sit down, and I'm walking him through the portfolio, which was with the robo advisor because that's what all the cool kids were doing at the time was robo advisors. And I
Okay.
said, hey, when we signed up, I answered like 5 questions, and then they came back with a recommended investment mixture. But I feel like this portfolio is not very good. And I started walking him through why I didn't think this was a good portfolio for my wife and I's goals. And he stops me halfway through the conversation and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, what do you mean?" And he said, what are you doing? Why do you work at this hotel renovation company? Why aren't you a financial planner?" He said, "You have taught yourself as a hobby more than some of the other professionals that he knew." He's like, "You know what you're doing. Why isn't this your job?"
Wow.
And I didn't know how to answer that question because I'd never even thought of it. So I went back to work and just kind of let it pass out of my mind. A few weeks later, this company wide email comes out, goes to every single inbox in the company, and it says, "Whoever is giving financial advice to their coworkers, please stop immediately. Sincerely, the director of HR." And so I called the financial advisor back and I said, "Okay, I think I'm in the wrong job. This is what just happened at work. What does it look like for me to leave here and become a financial advisor?" And so he gave me a lot of guidance. He wound up
Yeah.
becoming my mentor through this whole thing. But a few more months went by. I really drug my feet. Again, had been promoted. Money was good. It was like, why would I give this stuff up?
Why mess that
And
up? Everything
why
is
mess it
going
up?
nicely. Yeah.
Everything is going great. And then I had another meeting with my boss at the time. There was an incident in that meeting, and I turned in my notice. I gave a 6 week notice, so he had plenty of time, but it could not have been more clear to me that I needed to leave. So I left the company. I got the Four Dummies books for my tests. I studied. I passed all my tests, and I started Second Comma because I love helping young families with their finances and seeing that family unit flourish when the burden of personal finance gets lifted off of their shoulders, when they gain
Mhm.
clarity over what their money is doing, when they feel relief that the big question marks have been addressed, which doesn't always mean erased, but the big questions have been talked about. An answer is in the works. I realize that's what I love doing.
Then you have landed in the right place, Mark. The only person I know who's done more jobs than you is me, but we won't get into that. So, before we go any further, I have to ask for those who might be wondering, what does second comma mean?
So Second Comma came up when I was talking to a buddy who's in marketing, and I was thinking about doing this, making the jump, and I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out what do I call this thing that I'm about to do. And I started out with generic, Hansen Financial. I started out, all kinds of weird generic names. And he started asking me some questions, and he's like, "Well, what are you trying to teach people?" And I said, "I want them to understand this is not about turning $5,000 into $10,000. This is not about turning $100,000 into $200,000. Like this is about making a series of decisions over the course of time. It's a long obedience in the same direction. And if you are intentional enough, that like this is like it's exponential growth, not specifically with money, but like in the realm of money, it could be like a second comma in your net worth. That's how
Mm.
big the growth is if we decide to do these actions. And then I kind of sat back in my chair again and I said, I wonder if anybody has a company named Second Comma. And then I Googled it. I researched with the state of Texas. Nobody did. So now I own Second Comma.
There you go. I like that actually. I like it. I know we've got some questions from folks who wrote into you, once they learned you were going to be embarking on this adventure. So it seems like a good time maybe to go to some of those questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few of those here. And thank you to everybody who wrote those in. We put out, can you send us a few questions? Some of you guys responded, and that's awesome because I really enjoy answering questions like this. The first one that we got was, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? And what I am excited about is that now my answer to this question matches what I'm doing. If I had all the money in the world, I would be a financial planner, but I would do it way closer to the beach, right? If I could hang up on a phone call
What are
and
you in the
walk out.
middle of the country right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Landlocked?
Well, northern DFW, there are some lakes, but it's not the ocean, that's for sure. I like warm water. That's what I like.
All right.
But if I could hang up on a phone call and walk out of my house and dip my toes in the water and look out at the white sand with the beautiful blue water as it rolls in with the breeze. I mean,
Yeah.
I could do that, right? You turn around, dig a hole with my kids in the sand, and then walk back inside and jump on another call. I mean, I could do that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Ideally, if I'm really dreaming, and if I have that much money, there'd also be a ski lodge, so I could snow ski and sit on the beach in the same day. Maybe like ski down to the beach, but maybe that's
I
where my
like this.
dream
I,
starts to
I
fall
I know of
apart.
nowhere in the world like this, but I really like this
I
combination.
think, I think with
'Cause
enough money,
I
we can
hate
make it happen.
winter, except that I like to go ski. So it's like, that would work for me. That would work. If
I
you
don't want to
find
warm
that
up.
place, let me know. Okay.
I don't want to warm up at the lodge. I want to ski down and then sit on the beach. That's what I want to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh man. Another question that we got here is what is one thing you recommend to most clients, family, or friends? And I really do love telling people this answer because it's learn. I have fallen in love with podcasts. I am deeply in love with podcasts. Learn and keep learning. I like to make a joke that you're only 2.5 YouTube videos away from knowing almost anything you want. And
Amen.
if you can develop that habit, if it's a really complicated topic, maybe it's 3.5 videos, but we'll say two
Exactly.
and a half,
Most of the time, it's just like one video, which is amazing. But yeah.
But I tell people expand the horizons of what you want to learn about. Learn about new things. Keep pushing the limits of what you are learning about. And eventually, if you do that long enough and you do it continuously enough, you will learn a lot about a lot of stuff. And you will start solving problems in really creative ways. And I can say when I was in the corporate world, that is what brought me my success, was solving problems in ways that were so creative or different that nobody else had thought to solve the problem that way before. And so that's what taught me to teach other people to love to learn. And here are the resources for learning: YouTube, podcasts, get really good at Googling things. And that was probably the biggest success that I had was just I knew how to Google things faster and better than most other people.
Well, there's a talent to that. It's also a talent to know what to Google, I might add.
Yeah, putting things in quotes, put things in quotes, and that tells Google a lot about what you're searching.
It's like, oh, he wants to restrict it right to this.
Yeah, somebody else wrote in and they said, "Can you tell us one thing that most people don't know about you?" And this is a question that I struggled with, and I can't tell you one thing, but I decided to tell people a few things. Okay, so a few things about me. I'm part owner of an NFL franchise. I once helped the Secret Service with a matter of national security, and I have driven the moon rover, the new one that's going to the moon in 2026.
No. Okay, man. Oh, God. All right. I was doing fine with the envy part of this, but now I've got some jealousy and envy things. I mean, The moon rover is what got me. Okay. That
Now,
was way cool.
I will backpedal a little bit and say, all right, if you do some searching, okay, I own part of an NFL franchise. Some people get way too excited about that. I do need to clarify, I'm not a billionaire. Okay. I don't successfully own something because I bought into it. The Green Bay Packers are a publicly owned
Owned
NFL
company.
franchise.
Yes, they are.
And I have hanging in my garage a share of stock in the Green Bay Packers football team. So I am a football team owner. I am an NFL
Mm.
franchise owner.
As is everybody, by the way, who lives in Green Bay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you for diluting my special story. Thank you. Now, the Secret Service thing that really did happen, but no, we can't talk about it because it's a matter of national security.
That's all right.
Also,
I
if
know
I
a
tell
couple of
you the
Secret Service
story,
agents, so I can just go check. Well, I'll go double check with them. Okay. And say, hey, do you remember
nothing
this guy,
cool. It's
Mark
nothing
Hansen?
cool.
Did he really?
Now, driving the moon rover, that was actually super cool. And hopefully, I can put some pictures out on social media because the inside of the rover was just absolutely amazing. So that was a really, really cool thing to get to do.
That is very, very cool. Do you are you tied in with the company, or you have connections with the company that built the moon rover? I'm assuming.
Well, I mean, it's a string of things. My wife's family, they are some of the most just well connected, but not in a aggressive way. It's just they're the nicest people.
Yeah.
And over time, they have built the largest network of connections I've ever seen. So my wife's dad went to school with the lead robotics engineer who developed the new moon rover.
Oh, sweet.
And so through that string, we got an invite to come down to NASA in Houston. We peeked behind all the curtains, we held all the expensive stuff, and it culminated and capped off with driving the moon rover in the testing ground that they have where they're trying to push this thing and break it to its limits so that they can get it all fixed up before they actually take it to the moon in 26.
Sweet. Sweet. In that is where I've got a problem. Okay. But I'll get over it because I think it's awesome. I think it's very cool. It's terrific. We're running out of time on this first episode. I want to end with like a couple of really quick questions in terms of the practice, because we'll delve deeper into this in the second episode and look at know a little bit more about second comma and things. But let's end it with this question, actually. Let's end it with, who's your ideal client? We'll get into your investment philosophy and what you do for your clients in the next episode. But for now, let's leave it on, who do you think would be your ideal client, Mark?
I mean, my ideal client is someone who's thinking, I want to be fill in the blank with my money. I want to come alongside those who know that they aren't where they desire to be. And that's when I was younger, I wasn't good with money. If I had $1, I was trying to have $5 of fun. I was running out of money on Tuesday and I didn't get paid till Friday, which meant I couldn't do anything on Wednesday or Thursday because I had to have enough
Yeah.
gas in my truck to go pick up my check on Friday. Right. And for a long time, I didn't understand how to save. I only knew how to spend. And I am finding by talking to people, which is friends and family before even clients at this point, there's a lot of people with a story that's just like that. People who have climbed the corporate ladder, strong income. I'm typically looking for someone that's like our family unit that's going to be single income, which is going
Mm,
to be someone has decided to stay home and take care of young children, and someone is deciding to go to work physically or virtually. Inside of there, I find that we've got someone who's dedicated to the family and providing for the family, and somebody who's dedicated to the family by taking care of the family. And sometimes those people don't have enough time to get their finances figured out, but they have enough money that the pressure of getting the money figured out is really starting to weigh on them. And I like meeting those people right where they are and kind of setting things in order. I've got a very specific process that I take people through. And I love seeing that relief when I just give a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of process and a little bit of how to. People feel so much better. And that's exactly who I'm looking for, is someone who knows they're not where they need to be and is ready to take action.
For those people who are listening to this first episode, who are hearing this and are not already in contact with you, I know your information's in the show notes.
You can check in the show notes and actually download my ebook. The ebook is called What the Hack Are You Thinking? And it's all about how getting your finances in order is a long-term journey. right? It's a long obedience in the same direction.
For some
And
of
these,
us, it's a lot longer journey than others, but yes, yeah.
and so I wrote, "What the heck are you thinking?" Because people just want the tricks to shorten the process, and the whole book's about how you can't specifically shorten the process. So if that sounds interesting to you, jump into the show notes, download that ebook, read through it, and if something in there piques your interest, again, give me a call, shoot me an email, go to the website, and schedule a meeting to sit down with me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure meeting you. And I look forward to many, many more of these episodes to come. Most specifically, I mean, most immediately, episode number 2. But
Yeah, I am very excited to tell people more about what we do at Second Comma, who we do it for, why we do it that way.
yeah,
I'm really excited to get into more detail about that.
exactly. Oh, I'm excited to hear about it too, as well. For those of you who are listening to this and are already a subscriber, meaning you've been listening for a while and you just never went back to the introduction to Mark, great. But for those of you who are not subscribing, it's easy. Hit the subscribe button. It's simple. It's right there. It will be delivered to you. You'll be notified, and you won't ever miss another episode of this podcast. We would also ask that if you like it, tell people about it. That's easy. Share the word, as it were, and get the word out, and bring people over and have them join the conversation as well. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker on behalf of Mark, urging you to go out today and remember, you can make it a great day or not. It is your choice. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us on The Quiet Part. If you found value in our journey today, please subscribe and stay updated on future episodes. Check the links in the show notes to learn more about Second Comma or discuss working together. Remember, The Quiet Part is more than a podcast. It's a journey towards understanding the deeper aspects of our lives. It's about saying the quiet part out loud. Click the follow button and be part of the conversation about uncovering the unspoken. Lastly, here's some important information for our listening audience to know. The opinions voiced in this episode are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations to any individual or entity. Any depictions made in this podcast are hypothetical only. For a comprehensive review of your personal situation, consult with your financial or tax advisor before investing. Cetera does not provide any tax or legal advice. Securities and advisory services are offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Neither the co-host nor its guests are affiliated with Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC. Any information they provide is unrelated to Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, or its registered representatives. Mark Hansen, Financial Planner, 275 Wood, Teakwood Lane, Plano, Texas, 75075.